Potential impacts of a hurricane in Gulf LNG exports. It's a pleasure having Cyrus Brooks and Robert Kashmar today. Good afternoon, Cyrus and Robert.
Good
Good
to see you
afternoon,
again.
Alberto.
Yeah.
Good to have you here. May I ask you to introduce yourselves much better for me, starting with Robert, maybe?
Sure. My name is Robert Kashmar. I'm a senior natural gas analyst here at RBAC. A lot of what I do is a lot of scenario analysis and a lot of, researching, areas of risk within the United States and North America. And, we really honed in on LNG exports as one of these set of risks.
Perfect. Thank you. Cyrus, please.
Yes, and my name is Cyrus Brooks, and I handle the media, and I generally do the writing and a lot of research on the energy industry in relation to RBAC's main purpose, which is to help energy companies and regulators and governments make better energy decisions.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. The history is the following. I saw this article that Cyrus sent to me, and I became very interested in see how can we do something in terms of hurricane Gulf for an LNG. And Cyrus, please, could you please start? And after that, we could have a short presentation from Robert. Could you please go ahead?
Yes, I think certainly, the key here is we got unexpected, supply disruptions. Whether it's hurricanes or geopolitics, or if you remember back cyber attack on the what is it? The pipeline. Colonial. I was going to say Constitution.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Wrong one. Yeah, and the Colonial Pipeline. And so, there's definitely what could be the impacts, of these scenarios. And so, a specialist like Robert, we could ask him these kind of things. And he will do the whole analysis, and he's the expert in the area, and he's also been in the industry and the utilities before, so he knows things from many angles. So I just want to frame it and give you put you up real high, so put you up to a high standard there.
Robert, let me say you that Cyrus sent to me very complicated questions to ask you after your presentation. Please go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. So we're looking into the effects of a large scale hurricane, which what it would have on U.S. LNG exports. It's really a North American study in its focus, but we decided this was a study that we really needed. LNG is becoming increasing importance in the global natural gas supply chain. Ever since the Ukraine conflict, Europe has really depended on the United States for a large portion of their LNG supply. I think in 2022, we accounted for 64% of LNG exports to Europe. And, it's predominantly going to France, the UK, Spain, and the Netherlands. And there's a lot of benefits to LNG, too. It's very flexible. Tankers can be moved to port, depending on where it's needed. But, the U.S. is a reliable trade partner, right? And that is one of the most important things that Europe is looking for right now. So, one of the things that really also made it come to light on our portion is last year we had the Freeport LNG outage. And the Freeport facility is about 2 BCF a day. It's almost, 1/6 of, total exports currently. And, it really brought to a light the effects that it could possibly have on pricing, on storage, and just how it affects the North American natural gas markets. So we thought, what would happen if we lost all Gulf exports? How would that affect pricing? It would just take the Freeport situation to a much greater degree. So that's what we did. We said, what could possibly cause such an outage? And we settled on a hurricane, right? Hurricanes are force of nature. They've largely spared, LNG export facilities so far. In recent memory, they've hit mostly just Florida, but the possibility of disruptions to LNG exports via hurricane is not zero. So, this is what we decided to model. So can you go to the next slide, Armando?
Sure.
So if you look at this map, that the EIA, so helpfully created, you'll see just how many LNG facilitators are concentrated right in that Gulf in the Texas, Louisiana region. So you're seeing Calcasieu Pass, you're seeing Cameron, you're seeing Sabine Pass, Freeport LNG. These are big plants exporting a lot of gas, which, if disrupted, would have serious ramifications. So, the scope of our study is limited to North America, and we have 3 separate scenarios which we will compare to our base case, which is just status quo, everything operates as normal. So we're going to be looking at a 30-day outage, a 60-day outage, and a 90-day outage, of which Calcasieu Pass goes offline, Cameron LNG goes offline, Sabine Pass goes offline, not to mention Golden Pass, Freeport, Corpus Christi, as well as New Fortress Energy, Altamira. As well as off-system supply, right? Now, as well as offshore production of natural gas will go offline as well. So kind of mimicking what would happen if there was damage and flooding issues in the Gulf pertaining to a hurricane. Go ahead, Cyrus.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, now that I think about it, 2 things is one is I've seen, if you look at the map, you recall Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Ivan, a lot of these, and I mean, if you're going way back, Andrew and some of these, a lot of these hurricanes actually just, you might as well put those same dots on there. I mean, they're right there. I think at Plaquemines. I mean, that was Hurricane. What was that? The recent Hurricane Rita or something like that went right up between Mississippi and Louisiana, much where Plaquemines is just about where it is, right? So it's not that, these things are impossible. I mean, they hit landfall, 120 mile an hour winds. But I had this other crazy idea. At the same time, there have been calls to halt exports from various members of Congress and the Senate. And if that ever had even a temporary effect, it would have exactly the same effect as a hurricane stopping for 30 to 60 or 90 days. Although with the current war in Ukraine, I don't think I think that's one thing that Biden wouldn't do. He probably wouldn't do that because he's all in on Ukraine. But anyway,
yeah, it's a distinct possibility, Cyrus. It has been bandied around. So
yeah,
right, yeah.
Right. So this graph right here is just a visual representation of, the LNG export activity at those 7 facilities during the 30-day outage. Now, during the 60-day and the 90-day outage, that drop off would be extended, rightfully so. But you see, you're going from, almost 12 BCF a day down to 0. So it's significant.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go on to the next slide, Armando?
Sure.
So this is total American LNG exports, right? And you'll notice that it doesn't go all the way to zero. And the reason for this are the Elba Island LNG facility in Georgia, as well as the Cove Point facility in Maryland. Those were excluded from this study with the assumption that if a large-scale hurricane was to hit the Gulf, they would be spared.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, the North America, United States produces around 105 MMCF or BCF per day. So you're looking at almost 10% of production, not having a home, so to speak. So it's definitely a risk. Next slide, please. So here is a visual representation of what would happen at the Henry Hub pricing hub, which is actually located in Louisiana. In our base case, Henry Hub in August 2024 is hovering around $2.50. But if that 30-day outage were to occur, you would almost get dropped down an entire dollar. And you have similar, and that pricing would be consistent depending on the duration of your outage. And a big part of the risks here are a lot of producers. It's not economical for gas to be produced at $1.50. They might be able to keep producing for a few days, a few weeks with gas at that price, but they'll start shutting in their gas. So it's very important because they have costs too. They have businesses to run, and it's just not realistic to run their business at a loss to benefit others. And you talk about some of the other major pricing hubs. The Waha pub sees a reduction in price. Eastern Gas, South Point up in the Northeast, that is affected as well by this. Nobody's unscathed by an extended duration outage in the Gulf. The North American natural gas infrastructure is very connected.
But also, I have a little question here. So, because I grew up in California, and don't hold it against me. And but I was born in Boston. And these are two interesting places for natural gas, right? And so there wouldn't be enough storage or capacity or something to take a lot of this, or it would be way too much to fill up all the storage to save for another day if such a thing happened, right?
That is correct, Cyrus.
Yeah. So. If I would do it, why not fill up, what's it called again? Jalito Canyon,
Yeah, using this time that Cyrus make this good question, how many producers are we talking about?
We're talking about every producer in the United States, Armando.
Do you have a number?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
and they are coordinated in somewhere, or each one works independently?
Each one works independently, but they would all be affected by a low pricing environment.
Okay. Yeah. Please go ahead to show.
But like Cyrus said, there's not a lot of wiggle room to pick up for all this gas. You'll see in the South Central storage area, you end up putting way more gas into storage. You're talking about an additional 40 BCF a day in August.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go back to the storage injection.
Sorry.
You're talking about additional gas in storage on top of what already is going in. And those numbers are they increase drastically during a 60 and 90-day outage. A 75 BCF extra storage during a 60-day outage, 178 additional gas and storage after a 90-day outage. These are definitely things that while they exist to do this, to absorb impacts to the market, there's just not enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It almost makes me think, it kind of also shows that, the infrastructure, like because there's such large production, and it really brings to home that even if well, this is a good point. Think about what they said. Senators calling for stopping exports because they want to decrease the price. Also shows that point is, if you do, it's just there's actually not enough storage, not enough infrastructure to absorb all this extra gas anyway, or else the prices wouldn't totally decrease entirely. Is that right?
Well, in that case, Cyrus, I think you would see a lot of producers dialing back their storage and their production plans. So there, eventually, you would find an equilibrium again, where prices would increase to levels that the producers found economically viable.
Right.
But it would be much lower production levels.
Robert, I suppose that storage, they have storage both sides, the seller side and the client side, or I'm wrong. And they take in account the total storage, or each one does it?
So our North American model actually takes into account every natural gas storage facility in North America. So this is an aggregate view of the storage activity.
And how many days this total storage can wait for restart production?
It really depends on where each individual cavern or salt dome or what depleted well is at the time.
And what are the main applications that this natural gas is used to?
Go ahead, Cyrus.
Maybe next slide. Maybe go on to when you're talking about the different sectors, right?
Oh yeah,
exactly. I think he's going to get into that.
Oh, great. This slide or next one?
We'll just talk through this slide and then we should be able to get there.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a visual representation of what would actually happen to total United States natural gas production in the event of our scenarios, right? So you'll see the blue line is our base case. The red line is our 30-day outage. The green line is our 60-day outage, and the purple is our 90-day outage. So, it is like an 8 BCF a day drop in natural gas production as a result of LNG exports falling off and really being disrupted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can go to our next slide, Armando. Right. So this is what Cyrus was mentioning. As a result of a disruption to LNG exports, our prices crash, and it drops off by $1. Go from $2.50 to a little bit under $1.50. What happens within our GPCM market simulation model is, there's other demand sectors that have price elasticity, meaning that they are sensitive to the price of natural gas, and if it's cheap, they'll consume more. So in all scenarios, you see that the U.S. industrial sector actually increases its demand as a result of the low price environment caused by a cessation in LNG exports. So, that's kind of what Cyrus was getting back to when he talks about, senators suggesting that we cease exporting, because it would be better for our industrial sector.
Yeah.
And I think, the constraint, the storage also showed some of the constraints. So we used to talk a lot about the constraints as in California, and we saw that with the pipeline outage in El Paso, and the effects that had, and then also the Aliso Canyon leak some years ago, and the various restraints on that and the effects. So, I think one of the things this seems to show to me is that if somebody put the case forward, that if we did increase the infrastructure, the storage capacity in these various places, I think even New Mexico or Arizona was talking about increasing some storage. But finally getting a pipeline through New York to New England, there would be hell froze over, and actually, it actually happened. And then, we would then see more absorption of the exports. The reduction in exports could be absorbed by these markets better. I'm kind of thinking to that degree, but I think that counters the argument of people like Senator Warren, who thinks that just by stopping the exports, the prices will go down and we're all sweet and everyone's happy. All the residential customers will get cheap gas.
It's possible, Cyrus, but every action has a consequence, and
Right.
you would definitely see less investments by the producers in a low price environment.
But I don't think Massachusetts would get the cheap gas, right? Because even though it was available, they still couldn't send it.
And Robert, who will suffer more with hurricane interruption? Internal consumption users or the clients outside Brazil, outside the US? I mean, who imports from the US? Who
I would think both would suffer. Both sides would feel the hurt, but I would worry about the geopolitical ramifications of losing LNG exports from the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Mainly, specifically Europe, maybe something. It's totally dependent on LNG exports today.
Correct. There's a lot of charter tankers being chartered. If there was a sustained outage, you might have possibly tankers being sent from Asia back to Europe, or vice versa, depending on, the weather patterns in each region. There's a lot of flexibility within LNG, and it's very a dynamic and changing market.
Yeah, I think that that article from Bloomberg, Armando, just came out about it was Governor and Eni. And Governor canceled quite a few contracts over the last couple of years with Pakistan, and they canceled the contracts because of the prices going up, and they declared force majeure on various things and so forth, according to Bloomberg. Not entirely proved, but if they did, basically a very a loose contract, because made back in the earlier times when prices were lower and demand was not so crazy. You're going to have that kind of situation of things redirected. It was in that kind of situation, I think.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you because we have a visitor. A visitor here, please. Sorry. A very famous visiting us, Mr. Stuart Turley, the most famous podcaster in the energy sector. Thank you, Stuart. Please go ahead, Robert.
If you want to go ahead to our next slide, Armando.
Sure.
This is a similar concept. U.S. gas-fired electric generation demand. Again, very, very sensitive to changes in natural gas pricing. If prices were to fall, you would see an increase in natural gas-fired generation. It's very price sensitive to changes and very price elastic. So, in the event of this, you would see an increase in demand and a benefit to some customers in the United States with cheaper pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And then next slide.
Sure.
So this is about all we have for our presentation. We actually did this same presentation in the 2030 timeframe. Because there's a lot of LNG facilities in the Gulf being under construction, about to reach FID. And a lot it will change between 2024 and 2030. And we did that analysis And if anybody's interested in it, please reach out to us. Or if anybody has any questions, contact our BAC, and we'll be happy to help you out or answer any questions customers may have.
Sure, sure, sure. Let me ask, the government is interested in these studies, and do they participate in these, let's see, actions and strategies?
There are some
Yeah.
government agencies that have our model and can do very similar things. I think it's important that, when creating policy, they are aware of the possible ramifications of said policy.
But are you presenting this material to them? Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We have customers who actually do it with governments. For example, MISO is one of our customers. And also a lot of times what we do is we offer our tools to the consultants who then work with the government agencies. A great example of a similar scenario actually occurred over in Louisiana earlier using GPCM. And what they were really talking about was there is a highway and a highway down to the facilities. And if that went out, then there would be not just LNG exports, but basically there would be no way to get materials to and from a lot of the offshore production. So that it was like a key road, and that's how governments can use the GPCM software to kind of model these things.
Yeah. What do you use to export? Only this kind of cargo ship, LNG ships?
Yeah, to export LNG, it's predominantly via those ships. We do there is a lot of pipeline flow across the border to Mexico and through Canada. There's a lot of interconnectedness. So LNG is not the only gas we export. It's just the gas that would be impacted by a hurricane.
Yeah, perfect. And do you know? Are you let's familiar with the numbers? What's the volume this ship can carry to export each one?
It really depends on each
The size.
the size of each tanker.
Because last year I saw a Bloomberg picture with more than 70 cargo ships like this going from the US to Europe in a week, or in I don't remember the numbers exactly. So they do concern about CO2 emissions in this transportation.
There are concerns in regards to emissions, but when the alternative is to burn coal or to freeze, I think the loss of human life and the non-burning of coal is far outweighs the
uncomparable.
concerns.
Yeah, that's right. We have Stuart make. I suppose Stuart is for maybe a colleague from him. With the Biden administration cutting coal plants yearly, based load electricity may have even worse. How can you protect the grid? Yeah, interesting.
Well, one of the beautiful things about the GPCM model is that it is actually down to the pipeline level. So if the government were to retire coal plants, we would see where the infrastructure needs to be upgraded, increased, and where there are constraints within the pipeline system. So that would give pipelines an opportunity and some insight into where their infrastructure needs to be beefed up.
Interesting.
Yeah, and if you look at it in a broad energy industry kind of point of view, there's as that natural gas, it's the cleaner fuel. It doesn't have coal ash. It doesn't have the SOx emissions, far less NOx emissions, and half the CO2 emissions. So whatever people are concerned about, plus you can also add a landfill gas. You can add a lot of things, and then when you purify, of course, the biogas, you can put it right into the system, and there's no difference, and it burns into what? CO2 and
Yeah, yeah.
water vapor. So I mean, it's pretty clean fuel.
Comparison.
So
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Comparatively, yes.
Robert, hurricanes are very narrow in terms of area of attack. So, and so is it necessary to block everything, every production, or only in a part of the production?
It isn't necessary to affect all the LNG tankers. We were kind of just looking for, a dramatic way to tell our story. There's different ways you could run this scenario. You could run it just Texas outage versus Louisiana outage, or you could just run a few facilities here and there. But we were just really trying to tell a good story that would be of interest to people.
The main
Yeah.
states that are producers are Louisiana, Texas. What else?
The other large producing area in the United States would be Appalachia. Up where I live in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
And you got it all right there under your feet there, Robert.
It's not close to Katy. No, it's far from Katy.
No.
And how do you see? I know that you are talking only about the United States. I know that, and no problem. I know the limitation of the study, but going a little bit more, thinking about the world geopolitics issues. Are there other countries, no, that are exporters to Europe? I suppose Qatar. Uh, oh yeah, do you know
Russia
that?
as well.
Oh,
Russia still exports LNG to Europe as well.
it still is because Nord Stream is interrupted. No.
No, but
Okay,
they do send
LNG.
tankers. They do send
Oh,
tankers.
oh. But the most important one is the United States at this time.
Yeah, the United States and Qatar are the big players.
Yeah. I think we could run another scenario with on our global model, and there's a great guy, Ed O'Toole, who the counterpart of Robert there, and
We could bring
who would look at this. But you're right. I mean, Russia has Sakhalin in the east, and Yamal in the north, and also Qatar and Australia. Australia, of course, Qatar, U.S. top three world LNG exporters. I wonder, probably they will pick up the slack to some degree, but they might be running on full already. But if it's spot market, I mean, the prices are going to go up, and I'm sure the market will respond.
And Robert, is it normal to run a real simulation for LNG shortage?
Absolutely, it's very important, Armando. You consider these are billion-dollar assets. You want to be ready for any situation coming your way and have a plan for it. It's not something that you take for granted.
Perfect.
I think Freeport learned that.
Yep. Stuart, is there a dark fleet in the LNG carriers like the oil and gas countries? Right? Oh, fantastic question. This is Stuart Turley. He's the best.
Not that I'm aware of, Stuart.
No, I suppose it's more complicated for natural gas fleet market, no?
It's tracked, but I mean, what do you do if if gas is piped in? For example, you got gas piped on the Power of Siberia 1 to China, and then China gets more gas at U.S. LNG, and then instead of using the U.S. LNG for their domestic consumption, they just reroute it to Europe. It's the equivalent of Russian gas going to Europe. I mean, it's
but Cyrus is very difficult to let's see to because LNG is different from oil, so there's
correct. There's a lot of process getting cooling
control,
that gas,
cryogenic,
bringing that heating that gas back up.
it's
and a lot of the dark fleet for oil is actually old vessels. right? I don't think there's too many old LNG vessels floating around. It's a newer technology.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Stuart is saying that China was reselling their shipments from Russia. Face
They made a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's not quite a dark fleet, but it's kind of, what is it? An open secret, rather.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
yeah.
I'd say they were just rerouting, and you know.
Robert, what's the cost for a hurricane attack? I mean, how much cost? Things like that.
Of damage?
Yep.
The cost of the
They
damage.
stop producing, stop exporting. How much cost these things?
That wasn't something we took into consideration during this study, but it would be sizable.
Maybe very, very high costs, no
Yes,
doubt.
very much.
And clients seeing the opportunity of hurricanes in the United States and receiving importing from the United States, they increase their storage to protect this situation, or they are not aware about that.
You know, right now there are new storage fields being built within the South Central, the Texas, Louisiana, to kind of absorb some of this impact, and it's just the scale isn't there yet. It's gonna take a while for the market to balance itself out.
That's great.
Yeah, certainly,
fantastic.
I think, Mexico, you on a different scenario regarding Winter Storm Uri. He also did a scenario. Robert did a scenario, I remember, about Mexico and their storage, and so it's a similar situation to absorb some of that impact. But I mean, most people think of Texas with Winter Storm Uri, but of course Mexico was right there as well, and they had their difficulties and without storage, I believe, and so that was yeah. So
it was a tragedy for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, good point. Excellent. So I would like to thank you both for this opportunity to talk about this hurricane impacts in LNG export. And I suppose we could make an agenda for a next one, look into the whole world in terms of LNG, because it's something that is very attractive for people, including people from Brazil, of course.
Absolutely. It was a great time, Armando. Thank you for having us.
And you know that Brazil imports from the United States some part of LNG, natural gas. Thank you so much, Cyrus.
For now. Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Cyrus Brooks and Robert Cashmar. Was a pleasure meeting you today here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.